BBC Radio 5 Live.
I don't know what a podcast is.
That's brilliant.
Me playing on the left wing, it's not an option.
I'd probably cling to someone like yourself, try and hope that you'll protect me from the bullies.
Oh, it's Carl's fault.
Classic Carl, isn't it?
Damn you, Thomas Schaffenacke.
Was he a good dancer, Frank Lampard?
Oh God, it's like bargain hunt.
Now I'm on the Madras and I'm on the verge of a Vindaloo.
Not sure that bit will make it.
If you manage to get a photo of Iniesta, I will...
Buy me a car.
No. Right, episode 9 of That Peter Crouch podcast with me, Peter Crouch. Tom Fordyce and Chris Stark are with me. How are you, boys?
Different vibe, Chris, today, isn't it? We're recording this in the morning.
What makes this one different, though, and you were saying this to me before, Crouchy, is that we're by a load of windows, so really anyone can and is walking past us, occasionally peering in because there's a lot of cameras and lights to see.
It's like a budget one show.
Yeah, it is a bit like the one show. Or Dickinson's Real Deal, that show where Dickinson's there and they all sort of peer in through the background.
Yeah,
and it's like they're peering through the bushes to see what bargains they're getting.
I'm not sure about it. I prefer the dingy pub vibe. I think that's more our scene.
Yeah.
Should say, if you're listening to this and haven't heard the last podcast, I've got to say, boys, I think the last one was my favourite.
It's my favourite.
And we thought that was going to be crap.
Yeah, we did at the start because no one was feeling it at the start. That's what I said. You never actually said in that podcast that some of your best games are when you're not feeling it.
Yeah. And hello to Finn, who's got in touch to say, I do homework whilst listening to the podcast. Love that he's doing homework during the podcast. You know.
Or he'd be writing his geography and he'd be talking about capital cities and suddenly there'll be a line, Rome is the capital city of Italy. Michael Fish, you wanker.
Forgot about that bit. That was a good one.
Well, Finn, I hope it's helping with your homework
I can't
anyway.
be helping homework, can it? Surely.
I bet it's taking longer.
For me, personally, I know that if I find it very difficult to do two things at once. So to listen and do homework would be, how on earth could you do that?
Well, there's a sombre ending to that section.
Finn, keep going, Finn.
A nice email from Finn.
We're with you, mate.
No, I want him to keep listening. I'll just keep handing crap homework.
Here's one. This came on Twitter. So it's Matt Ramstead. Once saw Peter Crouch in a garden centre in Surrey.
I love a garden centre.
Browsing ferns.
Garden centres are underrated, mate. I totally agree with you.
I'm a huge
it's not just
fan.
an age
Do you like
thing.
a fern in
Mate, it's
particular?
banging. You
Huge
can
fan,
get
yeah.
beers at garden centres now.
Can you?
Yeah. There's a lot more going on than you might think.
We've got a cracker near us. Real cracker.
Have you?
Yeah.
Good ferns?
Real good one. The ferns are fantastic. Nice cafe. And you could Christmas decorations. You buy everything.
Fill
there.
your boots.
We had last year, we bought a 6-foot Santa Claus that we put in the house that lit up. It's great.
Put it in the house. Most people put
On the outside.
big inflatable ones outside.
No, do you know what we did? We put it in the house, and you come in at night, and it's dark. You come in, it's like a huge Santa in the dark, with a big hood up and stuff, and a beard, and you're like, oh, Christ, scared the life out of me.
Hang on, you thought you might be burgled by Father Christmas?
No, he just looked like a big fella. He's a big man, Santa, isn't he?
When you're looking for ferns, just on this fern
Yeah.
topic, because it's quite specific, what do you look for in a fern? Because you're browsing, you're not just buying a fern, you're browsing them. So
Size is important, isn't it? Texture. We were after quite a large fern. Yeah.
You got pampas grass outside your house.
I'm not familiar with pampas
Now,
grass.
pampas grass is the plant that indicates swingers.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So if you ever see a house with pampas grass outside,
I think it's because it was planted, it was very 70s, wasn't it? So it's the same sort of vibe.
yeah. So you want to be careful with that, Crouchy, when you're buying your plants.
I
What
didn't
do
know.
ferns signify?
I don't know. Listen, I'm not Titchmarsh, mate. I haven't got clues.
It's a very specific knowledge
like
about
your gardens.
about plants and their wider meaning.
No, I don't know.
Right, I got one here, lads. Hi, Peter. I got told a funny story in 2005. I was wondering if it was true or not. And we're finding out that a lot of these are actually true.
They're pretty much all true.
I used to work as a match day groundsman at St Mary's when you played for Saints. I know exactly where this is going, and it is true. When the season finished, all the players used to leave their old boots behind at the training ground because they got new ones for the next season. So the ground staff used to take the old boots home and play in them. An old friend of mine, Kyle, took your boots back in 2005, but unfortunately for him, you then got called up to the England squad. So then you came back to the training ground to get your boots. After you found they were at Kyle's house, you jumped in the car with him, drove back to his house to get them, had a nice chat and a couple with his parents. Kyle is now a groundsman at Wembley. That's from Luke.
Incredible.
Yeah, this is true, yeah.
You'd have one pair of boots.
Well, I was very precious with my boots. If I had a pair of boots that were going well for me and I was doing well and scoring, I wanted to keep wearing them. Found it difficult with sponsors later on in life that they want you in a different pair of boots every sort of month, don't they? And
Do they?
yeah, they're constantly bringing out new boots, and you're forever having to change boots. And I found that very difficult to do. So I turned down a lot of boot deals and stuff because I wanted to wear the same boots. And I was going through that period at Southampton where I was banging in goals. I just got myself with the England squad. It would be mental for me to change boots.
The magic boots.
In my eyes, it would just be mad.
Poor Kyle then has to say, I'm sorry, Mr. Crouch, I've been wearing your boots at home, sort of pissing around in them.
Honestly.
You're going to have to go to my mum's house. Okay? And you were like, right, let's go.
Yeah, that's the fact that you didn't have a go at Kyle.
No.
Go and get my
I
boots. You
actually
just
felt
jumped in the
sorry
car
for
with
him because he has, in a weird way, he has nicked my boots. I mean, I didn't give them to him. He took them. But I remember he was a good lad, and he was obviously a big size, and he wore them. But it was funny that those groundsmen are all wearing the lad's boots. my boots at the time, I remember that they were my lucky boots, and I remember going around to his mum and dad's house, and we did have a cup of tea and chatted to him about what he was up to, and I told him that I was going to play for England, and I got the boots, and off we went. I remember he drove me around there. It was, yeah.
Did he have massive feet? Because you claimed in the last podcast that you had the biggest feet in football.
Let me just say, I didn't say I had the biggest feet in football. What I
You
did
did.
say-
Yes,
I did
you
not
did.
say-
Come on.
Crouchy.
You are painting me in a bad light here. I did not say that. What I did say was most footballers have small feet.
You
Like,
said you've never met a footballer with bigger feet than you.
I haven't met one though. That's true.
Oh, that's a technicality then, Crouchy.
Well,
What
I've
you're
met
doing
a
is you're
bit-
being clever with the word in there.
Well,
Yeah.
I've played for a long time. Met quite a few players, and I've not seen anyone with bigger.
Boys, today's podcast, what are we doing?
This episode of the podcast is about confessions and about forgiveness.
Oh, I like it. It's a bit of a special, isn't it? It's a bit like the lie detector special and Jeremy Kyle. This is all the emails that we've had in to peter.crouch@bbc.co.uk, your new email address.
I've had loads of emails, and I've printed them all off for you.
Lovely.
Who prints emails?
Yes, I do.
I think my granny used to print emails because she didn't understand that if they were on the computer, they still existed. Much like her, you need physical proof.
Crouchy's
of emails.
old school. He needs a hard copy of everything.
I do a bit, yeah. I haven't really evolved very well. I went straight from school to playing football, and I'm not great with emails, I'll be honest. So printing it off and having it in my hand is a lot easier.
Well, we've got loads of them, so thank you so much if you sent us an email, and let's try and get through a few today then.
I'm looking forward to this one.
Crouch going for the spectacular. Oh, what a goal from Peter Crouch!
That Peter Crouch podcast from BBC 5 Live.
Right, lads, we've been printing some confessions, and we've got loads.
This one is called Jimmy Floyd's arse. Great already. Hi, boys. Jimmy Floyd Hasselbank once came over to get the ball in front of us. Just as there was a lull in the singing, my mate shouted, "Oi, Hasselbank, your arse is massive in those shorts." Everyone heard it. Just as I laughed, Jimmy looked round and stared straight at me with those massive eyes. He stayed there for what seemed like minutes. I kept pointing to my mate. But he wasn't having any of it. That's from Jonathan.
No, he doesn't deserve forgiveness.
It's funny what people come up with to shout, "Hasselbank, your ass is massive in those shorts." It's very sort of Gok Wan.
So matter of fact.
If Gok Wan was in the crowd, it's an odd
A
insult.
more flattering cut for you would be the Bermuda.
So matter of fact, yeah, it's just making an observation.
Here's a good one. This is from Phil. When at a Stockport County game some years ago, I stood up as the players went into the tunnel at half-time and I shouted towards the referee, Uriah Rennie, "It's because of performances like that you're reffing in League Two." He stopped shy of the tunnel and looked at me with genuine sorrow. He then looked down at his feet and trudged into the tunnel. I've never been able to forget his hurt expression.
Oh,
Sorry, Uriah.
oh, that's sad.
Na 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 na.
That is sad, isn't it? Do you think? I don't think he's genuinely upset. Surely, especially as a referee, you must be used to.
I thought he was hard, Uriah, and didn't he have like a black belt in karate or something? I thought he was quite.
Yeah. But also, referees, they're the nearest thing that you kind of have to teachers, don't you? And you just think they're indestructible.
Say what you like to him.
Referees surely must get the most abuse of any
Every
player,
game.
more than any player. It's every game. Worst thing is it's both sets of fans.
Yeah.
So at least you've got a bit of backup, usually, as a player.
True.
Like, it's both sets of fans and both benches. Literally you and the two linos.
It's true. There's no one in the crowd wearing a referee's kit.
With Rennie on the back.
Although Fulham have got a neutral stand, haven't they? Which I've always found a bit baffling. I've always thought that that's for supporting
Who
the
has?
referee.
Who's got that?
Fulham, Craven
They've got
Cottage, you go in, yeah,
a
and it's actually
neutral
signed
stand.
neutral stand.
So
Yeah,
Southwest London, that.
Oh,
Yeah.
what is that about? I didn't even know about that.
At least a referee can go and hide in the centre circle. Is it not worse being a linesman? Because you're trapped between the touchline and the abusive fans.
Yeah, the
There's
line.
nowhere to go.
Linesman's nightmare, isn't it? As soon as you're standing there with your flag up and you've just ruled out a goal and there's so many people behind him just absolutely abusing it, it can't be nice.
This one's from Ed. On the 26th of August 2017, I spent 90 minutes berating the Crew goalkeeper Ben Garrett when they beat Port Vale. After the game, I bumped into him in the car park. Wow. My reaction was to compliment him on his performance, have a photo with him, and wish him well for the season.
That is so
Oh,
bizarre.
Ed.
What a bottler.
Yeah.
What a bottler.
But that is so bizarre. It's like when you go to a game, you would do that. But if you saw him on the street, would you say the same thing?
Of course not.
No.
Also, to meet in the car park, I mean, that's the stereotypical, right? I'll see you in the car park. I have a photo with you in the car park.
I see you in a car park to completely change my approach.
I'll change my opinion in the car park.
In retrospect, you're actually quite a charming individual.
The aggressive voice are all putting on there.
Me, you, car park.
Right, I've got one here. This is anonymous. Hey up, Crouchy. You missed an absolute sitter for Stoke last season. I shouted, piss off Rodney from the Boothen end. That's one of my fans. Lovely. I know this is from Carl.
It's got Carl written all over it.
Classic Carl.
Oh, God.
This one's from Jared. Crouchy, first off, I love you. As a fellow lanky wanker, you are God.
That's nice.
Hold on a minute. It's an underhanded compliment. Never I've heard one.
I'm a Spurs fan, so let's talk about Adebayor. Not only did he take your place, but he's a complete knobhead. I once screamed, "You're just a shit Peter Crouch," and got the whole stadium chanting along with me. Do I regret it? Absolutely not. All the best, Jared.
I know a few Spurs fans. I know Adebayor didn't go down great there. But, I mean, singing against your own players isn't...
Yeah, but
It's-
from
I-
your
I've got a
personal
bit-
point of view, to have a whole crowd singing "You're a shit Peter Crouch" is kind of quite nice for you to hear.
secretly.
isn't it?
Yeah,
Be
well,
honest.
It's not, it's not the end of the world for me, is it? It's not great. It's not great for him. But it's not nice if your own fans are berating you. I mean, that's not a nice feeling.
We're going to call this one Instant Karma with Jeffrey Schlupp. So Tom from Stafford says, I used to have a season ticket in the front row at Aston Villa. We were playing Leicester. Jeffrey Schlupp was playing up and down the wing in front of me. He made a bad challenge. I got into him. I got his attention and we exchanged a few choice words before I gave him the bird as he jogged off. About 5 minutes later, he scored. And he celebrated in front of me whilst holding eye contact with me the whole time.
That's so personal, isn't it?
If you get an abuse and you score a goal, it's the biggest shut up, isn't it? Like you can possibly do.
Do you ever make enemies with people in the crowd?
I have done. Yeah, like it's worse obviously when you're on the bench because you can hear it more. You haven't got the adrenaline pumping. You're not concentrating on something else. You're just having a little stretch, and that it's worse in a lot of ways because sometimes the game goes quiet and you'll just hear something like from behind. I had one recently actually that was quite cutting. I was just having a little stretch and I just heard from behind me, really quiet as well, "Crouch!" And I obviously pretended I couldn't hear it. And have you not retired yet? Oh, bollocks. I went and sat down on the bench again.
You sacked off your warm-up.
It went through me a bit and I went, oh, God, I haven't, no.
When you're warming up then, that must be so tricky for you because it is very isolating. It's almost like at that point you're just what a lot of people would call a club PA in the sense that you're no different to a member of Towie turning up at a nightclub and waving. You're not really playing or anything, are you? Yeah, everyone can feel that they can say what they want.
Well, yeah, it's
you
so
can't be
bizarre.
distracted with the game. They know that you can hear. So do you ever reply?
Well, There's the odd funny one. The majority, I'd say 99% are ridiculous. So you just ignore them anyway. But I think as soon as you start engaging, then it encourages more people to do the same thing.
You've lost
So,
them,
yeah, you just stretch and pretend you can't hear it. I think it's the best way to go. I remember one fellow at Arsenal that was giving me a bit of stick when I was warming up, and it was getting to the point where I'm going to have to turn around and say something now. I turned round, and he was a larger gentleman, should we say, and I'm sure he had his face full of a pie. And I think I told him that perhaps he should put the pie down.
Sir, I suggested you put that pie down.
Yeah.
Schlupp, it was a middle finger situation there as well, which is kind of rare at the football. Normally it's 2 fingers, isn't it? Or indeed a sort of shaky hand.
So
to
I
insinuate that you're a wanker, mate.
What he's done there, he calls it the bird. So it's the middle finger, isn't it? Which is an Americanised one. As you say, Chris, the old-fashioned British insult was very much what was done at Agincourt. I think a bit like the way the American grey squirrel has killed off the British red squirrel, the American bird. The American bird has replaced the good old-fashioned 2-fingered salute.
I always remember going to football when I was younger with my dad and stuff at Chelsea back in the day. And you ever remember that one where someone from one stand would say to the other person in another stand, point at them and give them the outside one, as if you're going to meet him outside.
Yeah.
It's never happened.
You're never
in
going to
the
meet.
history of football.
Yeah.
It's never. Have you picked one person out in the crowd, gone outside? Have you ever met that person and had a scrap? It's never happened. Can I just move it on to this one here that's really tickled me? This is from Mick. Hi, Peter. I work in advertising and kind of know your dad slightly. I actually scored a goal against him in a footy match years ago. He wasn't much of a keeper. He's still abusive, as we see.
Is that true? Is he a rubbish goalkeeper?
He was all right. Well, when I was like 8 when I used to go and watch him. He used to play for the district line, believe it or not. That's when I used to watch him. And I always thought he was a decent keeper. He was roof 6'5" and quite commanding.
Best tube line? Who were the most successful tube line in that setup?
The Duberry were top notch.
Yeah, exactly.
The local derby was the district line, the Piccadilly line, because
big
they
time.
run,
That's
you know,
huge.
obviously that's the closest in proximity. So those derbies were much like the Celtic Rangers, something
Brocker
like
Junior,
that.
River Plate,
That was a big game. But anyway, should we get back to this email from Mick? When you're on loan at Norwich, you came up to Deepdale. You were in the Preston box and I was behind the goal. I shouted something along the lines of "You're shit" and your dad's shit at advertising.
That's so specific.
That's amazing. That is amazing. He goes on to mention, just so we're clear, your dad was a great creative.
Oh, that's
I was
nice.
saying it to put you off. Love, Mick.
But 2 questions. A, did it put you off? And secondly, was your dad a great creative?
Yes, I believe he was very good, but that would have put me off because
Do
it
you
was so
recall it?
specific. The fact that he knows my dad's in advertising and he's telling me he's shit and I'm shit.
What I like about this, Chris, is because we wanted this episode of the podcast to bring people together. It's not just about great insults, it's about asking forgiveness and a sense of closure.
Yeah, I'd like to forgive Mick.
That's nice.
We got so many of these. This one's from Jack. I was once singing "Who Ate All the Pies, You Fat Bastard" to James Beattie.
Classic football chant.
Only these are so good. Only for him to score 30 seconds later and reveal his evidently not fat belly. Think he went on to score a hat-trick that day. Thanks, Jack. Annoying, isn't it? You've just sent a load of abuse in the way of James Beattie and he goes and scores. Did it motivate you further to score Crouchy when you picked up a bit of
Yeah, I
stick?
mean, it's so much sweeter when you score. It's so much sweeter, yeah. When David Ginola did it, he was getting absolutely abused for being fat. I think it was possibly his own manager. I think it was John Gregory that came out in the press and said, oh, he's overweight and this and that, and he's not fit enough, basically. I remember when Ginola scored, he took off his shirt and
And an amazing six-pack.
certainly wasn't fat, yeah. But
James Beattie?
James Beattie wasn't fat either, no. He was a specimen. I played with him at Southampton and... he was fit as a fiddle.
Why do people think he was fat then?
He just
Stocky.
big. He's very, very big.
Big-boned.
Arms. Yeah. No, his top half was big. He was a swimmer when he was a kid, I think, and he was huge. Big man, but he was never fat. I mean, he had no body fat on him whatsoever.
Were there any players who Chris and I wouldn't think of as fat, but actually were quite fat? Had little tubby bellies, but they could get away with it.
Oh,
there is one in there. Secretly fat footballers.
Yeah.
There's always the ones who retire and you don't see them for like a season, and then they turn up to do some punditry and it's like they've turned into an inflatable version.
It's incredible, isn't
Yeah.
it, how quickly it can
Yeah.
change. Neil Ruddock, I saw not that long ago, really surprised me on Can't Pay, Will Take It Away. You've seen this?
I've seen him on a few things. Saw him on Wife
Can't
Swap.
Pay, yeah, but at least that's something he signed up to. Can't Pay, Will Take It Away is the Bailiff show.
Should there really
No,
be a
no.
programme celebrating people's misfortunes?
Well,
so
no,
publicly?
no,
Yeah,
there
that's
there
kind of
shouldn't.
a program is. That's why I'm glad I haven't seen it.
Well,
So the basis of it is you can't pay and they take it away.
You've got the concept of the show straight away.
It's genuinely.
let's get Crouchy on it.
I don't want to be on it.
Oh, you've dropped your
I've
emails.
got
What have you
it.
done?
No,
You're having an
emails
admin
have gone.
nightmare.
If you
Emails
didn't
have
print the
gone.
emails off, you wouldn't be dropping them. They'd just be on your laptop.
God, what have you done? It's a mess.
What
Oh,
about-
laptop. That's a better idea.
How are you getting on with the new BBC email account as well? I assume you're checking it regularly.
Been checking it most days, every hour.
But I've got in front of me here messages from the BBC IT service desk informing me that you need to sign up to the password reset tool.
Don't tell us your password. Obviously, that's number one rule of passwords, isn't it? Keep
Yeah.
it to yourself. If it is Peter Crouch 1234, whatever it is.
No, it'll be like Robot 69, I reckon.
Robot 69.
No, but that was always the old MSN. It was always your name and then a 69 on the end. Did you have MSN? I assume you did.
Yeah, I think it was my first one, yeah.
I love the idea of a whole football team talking on MSN. Glenn Johnson, Becks,
John Walters.
David Beckham 69. It'd be like Hot Becks 69. I
It would be,
reckon.
wouldn't it? Because David Beckham 1 would have gone early doors, so he
Yeah.
can't have David Beckham 1.
You must struggle with that all the time. Your name is always taken because there's so many different Peter Crouch accounts ripping you off.
Yeah, true. I've only got a Twitter account and one email account. I haven't got many.
Is there a
things
fake
out
you
there.
on Twitter?
There's quite a few fake ones, yeah.
Is he funnier than the real one?
Yeah, he's a lot better than me.
Is he?
Yeah, a lot better material. But no, I've had one recently. It was one on Instagram. So I'm not really on Instagram. I think I opened one years ago. But someone recently, it was so bizarre, opened one and only added or whatever you have to do on that. Was it request friends? I don't know what you do.
See, I can see now why you print off emails. You live in the dark ages.
Well, I only do Twitter and text, really. But no, so he's gone for like all like old friends, like really good, no one that you would know. So everyone, like, he's gone from like my sister and like 4 schoolmates.
That's weird.
It's bizarre. So how he knows, I've no idea.
You've had some weirdness though as well, Chris, this week, you were telling us.
Listen, talking of creepy stuff that's happened, I received yesterday to my home address. I opened up this letter. It has my name on the front, address, and it's sealed with sellotape on the back. And inside are 2 menus for the Samrat. No note. No reason why they would have sent it to me. The Samrat is nowhere near where I live.
How have they got your address?
Right?
What's
That's
it?
what I'm saying. None of my mates would be clever enough to know my address. And there's no explanation for
There's
it.
not a
It's
letter
just
saying,
two menus
Chris,
for the Samrat.
we're looking forward to the Christmas special.
Nothing. No, thank you for the many mentions of the Samrat.
What I'm
Nothing to
I'm
do with me.
really struggling with it because I don't think they deliver either. So they've sent you menus. You live miles away. You'd have to travel.
It's so weird. It's like the kind of thing, if you sign up to some marketing or you go get a pizza from somewhere, then they text you for ages. I get loads of texts from Domino's in Glasgow. In fact, all over the
Yeah,
UK.
Papa John's in
do you know what I
North
mean?
London,
And you're
yeah.
never going to, like, it's Friday night, they send you these messages. Maybe I've been to the Samrat at some point and don't remember it, but I'd remember that, right?
Yeah.
The way you describe it is
There's
that
only one
you know,
Samrat as well.
It's incredible. You would know if you'd been there.
it's just unexplained at the moment. Right, let's crack on. Here's one from Banjo. Great name.
Welcome,
who is
Banjo.
who is a Liverpool fan. All right, guys, I once won a couple of tickets to see the Spice Girls through my work. It was just after Gary Neville had celebrated in front of us. Crouchy might have been playing in the game.
Yeah,
apparently.
I was.
Anyway, before the Spice Girls gig started, they brought a load of VIPs down to the seats in front of us. Gary Neville walked past my section of the crowd. So I shouted his name and I stupidly threw a plastic cup of lager at him, which soaked him. At a Spice Girls gig. Wow. It was a mint shot, to be fair. It was then pointed out he was holding hands with 2 children, who were actually David Beckham's children. Not proud of it, and the girl who joined me for the evening was not impressed either. That was a long, quiet train ride home. Keep up the good work. Banjo. What a story.
Banjo.
That is some story, that.
And you love the Spice Girls as well.
Hold on a minute. Yeah.
You must be buzzing about the reunion
Can't
news.
wait.
But
Cannot
no
wait.
Posh. What's your views on that?
It's not ideal. We're going to get the band back together. Let's get the band back together.
That's what I think.
But yeah, I mean, that story is incredible. isn't it? I was part of that game where Neville went to the Liverpool fans, and Liverpool fans were fuming. I mean, they were going mental. But he does get a lot of grief, Gary Neville. Can understand why he did it, but that doesn't stop Liverpool fans feeling the way that they did. But you can't condone throwing a pint at him at Spice Girls gig. This reminds me of a little story. We went to watch Amir Khan when I was playing for Liverpool, and I think Steve Gerrard had sorted out the tickets, and we arrived late. And this was like 5 Liverpool players in the MEN in Manchester. Why didn't we just come here early, and get our seats? And we've come in, I've just heard a couple of shouts, and then the whole stadium sing, "You Scouse bastards, you Scouse bastards," the whole way until we sat down, and then it was going on for a good few minutes after that.
What a welcome. But at least that's at the boxing. The idea that someone's lobbing a pint at a Spice Girls
that's
gig,
true,
which has never been done before, surely. That must be the only time that situation has happened. Knowing Gary Neville as you do, though, have you ever had to go and have a word with someone like that who you know quite well to basically say, rein it in a little bit?
Marko Arnautovic had a tendency to go and celebrate more so with the away fans than the home ones. He's a wind-up merchant. I love Marko. I absolutely love him. But yeah, he used to love winding up opposition fans. Sometimes even when he hadn't scored, he'd just set one up. He'd just go into the away fans and give it to them. Some players work on the basis of winding people up, and it works for them and it gets them up for it. I remember Craig Bellamy.
I was waiting for Bellamy's name to come
up. Just saying to me once, it's like a bit of form of Tourette's in a way. You just go and shout at everybody. But I'd ask him after the game, like, why do you do that all the time? And he's like, it gets me up for it. If I'm shouting at people, it winds me up and it makes me play better. And it's not personal, but well, sometimes it is, but majority of the time it's not, and it's just to G him up for the game. And I think some players play on the edge, and that's certainly something that probably Marko does.
Have you ever, before a podcast, have used the Bellamy model?
We should try it for the next one. You never
Get
know.
ourselves up for it.
Well, it would cheer you up. And I think if they react back, you'd be like, hold on a minute, give them a little bit more. And then you'd be right up for this podcast. Look at me now. Look how
Let's have it.
I'm ready for it.
What annoys me as a football fan is when you get a Lescott situation where they've gone on Twitter and put up a picture of their Lamborghini or something, and then he claims that he'd been hacked.
Or that his pocket had done it. His coins and his keys in his pocket had somehow opened his smartphone, found a picture of a Lamborghini, opened the Twitter app, posted the picture of the Lamborghini
after
on
a game
Twitter.
where he'd received quite a bit of abuse. Yeah.
Those are amazing coins.
Yeah.
Oh, phones these days can do anything, can't they? Amazing things.
Here's one. This is from Jason. Hi, Peter. I can't claim this one, but a pal of mine lives in Spain. Over there, you are known as the asparagus.
Oh.
I assume an asparagus is a long, thin...
What do you mean you assume? You've never seen an asparagus?
Well, yeah, I do know what asparagus is.
Asparagus is probably one of the sexier of vegetables.
Well, it's long and it's got a bit of hair on top, hasn't it? So, yeah.
No, but it's got
I suppose it's a decent
They look
likeness.
fit, don't they, in asparagus?
They're
in the
lean,
sense
and
they're
you don't
lean.
get many fat asparagus, do you?
No, you don't really. I'll take a compliment. It's not like he's calling you a prawn. But no, an asparagus. If I was going to be an asparagus, I'd feel quite.
But so is this universally known in Spain that I'm an asparagus?
He says he's surprised that Iniesta didn't mention it when the two of you met.
But what is the Spanish for asparagus?
Asparagus.
Because I love it.
Nice.
Oh, there he goes, the asparagus. I love the idea that Crouchy's the Spanish word for asparagus. Probably sounds lovely.
Here's one from Alan. I used to give Middlesbrough goalkeeper Ben Roberts a really hard time from the Holgate end at Ayresome Park. Ben Roberts, unless I'm mistaken, was in goal when Borough lost the 97 FA Cup final and Di Matteo's banged that shot over him in the first minute. Ben Roberts was that goalkeeper. Alan says, later that season, I managed to get a few trial games for Borough, and Ben was in goal. I felt really guilty for having slagged him off only a few weeks earlier, as he was a genuinely nice lad. I found myself overcompensating and being over-friendly with Ben Roberts in the showers after both games. Must have been a bit weird for him. And then his little payoff from Alan, I didn't make it as a footballer. I'm now a civil engineer.
Oh, that's a nice apology, though, isn't it? I suppose.
What do you reckon you would have been if you're not a footballer, Crouchy? And not the virgin thing. We've heard that one before.
I'd love to have been a tennis player. Would have liked to pursue that, see how far I could have got.
Big serve, cliche for
yeah,
big
I
man.
had a big serve. Yeah, I had a big serve, and then I did my work experience with my dad in advertising. And I know he's been slated a bit for being not very good at advertising by Mick, but he was good. And I went there and I really enjoyed it. I enjoyed the creative side of it. I enjoyed, my dad used to have something in his head, create an advert, and then we'd see it on the TV and he'd go, "Oh, that's mine." And it's
What was his best advert?
Oh, he's done some great ones. He did Boddington stuff with Mel Sykes.
Did he?
He was involved in that. Levi's. Do you remember the fella? I always remember the one that he showed me was the fella with the tyres. Do you remember him? He was working in the on the cars in the garage, and he would turn around with the tyres. Do you remember that one?
Chris?
No, I don't remember.
No. That was good.
No, I'm sure it was a big advert.
Yeah, no, there was
Just
it was a good
advertising,
few-
you reckon?
That kind of stuff. Yeah, I would have
Interesting.
gone into that. I think.
One of my favourite stories from our last pub was about Graeme Souness and yoga. There's another story about Graeme Souness. This comes from Phil in Thunder Bay in Canada. Phil says, as a kid at Stokes Old Victoria Ground, we could sit on the concrete wall behind the advertising hoardings, virtually on the touchline. In the second half, a Stoke defender felled Souness, who slid off the pitch and crashed headfirst into the hoarding, the same hoarding upon which I was resting my half-time cheesy oatcake. Right.
Very Stoke.
Yeah.
Very nice. It's very Stoke. Can't get anywhere else, I don't think.
Can't get anywhere else. Either way, Souness ended up wearing, and this is one of my favourite phrases of the year so far, Souness ended up wearing a charming type of oatcake tam o'shanter.
What's one of those?
What's a tam
Tam
o'shanter?
yeah.
It's a Scottish hat that looks a bit like a cheesy oatcake.
Oh, okay, right.
He then
Didn't know
says,
that.
cheesy oatcakes are a great leveller in life. To see the hard man of Liverpool lying in the dirt, wiping mud, sweat and molten cheddar off his head was a sight none of us would ever quickly forget. Some 40 years have passed, and I still have pangs of guilt about the great oatcake incident.
Wow, that's amazing.
Souness will remember that as well, won't he?
You don't forget an oatcake on your head, do you?
No, that's not something that happens every game, is it?
No.
It'll be a bit like that story about when Martine McCutcheon was going out with Mick Hucknall and he had the dreads at the time and she was sick in his dreads after a night out and he had to chop his dreads off.
Oh, that famous story.
Remember that story?
I've literally never heard that story.
Oh,
at
no,
all.
no,
It's the
sorry.
McCutcheon, Hucknall.
So I've not heard
Oh, my
that. No,
goodness.
it's a famous Martine McCutcheon
Oh, everyone
Hucknall
knows. Yeah,
story.
yeah.
Were they going out, did you say?
They were going out.
Martin McCutcheon.
Hold on. but
McCutcheon
there's
told this
a
story.
big age difference there, isn't there?
Well,
Yeah, but Hucknall
and
was a
sort of
Lothario.
league. It was an FA Cup draw right there, wasn't it? Mick Hucknall and Martin McCutcheon.
So you think he's punching above his weight?
Yes.
There's nothing wrong with that. That's not the issue here. That is not the issue here. And how do they meet? I mean, what?
Showbiz circles, I imagine.
Maybe he was a fan of her music.
She had a number
was
one
she-
hit single.
Yeah, that was a
Can
good
you
song.
name it?
Yeah, I'm going to get it.
Go on.
This is my moment.
This is my perfect moment,
moment
with you.
There you go.
So that Hucknall's obviously heard that song and thought, I wish I wrote that.
Sounds a bit Simply Red, actually, doesn't it?
Yeah.
When you think
maybe
about
he did
it.
write it. That's blowing my mind. That, and not only that, did she throw up in his hair? Did you say?
So they had a big night out, apparently, and they're in a cab on the way home, and we've all been there, the stomach start going, and then someone's probably wound the window down, and it's just hit her, and she thinks, I can't vomit on the taxi, because as we know, it's a £50 clean-up fine.
And she's chosen his hair as the best that she can do in those seconds of vomiting. That's
I've
amazing.
got so many questions with that story.
It's a bizarre image. What I never knew that they were a couple, though.
I never
sort
knew
of
that either.
Shook me that.
I really didn't.
So do you think that Souness, after he's worn the cheesy oatcake tam o'shanter, maybe Alan Hansen and Mark Lawrenson are just picking bits of cheese out of his hair?
It's a lovely image, isn't it?
Going back to that story when I was doing yoga has wounded me a little bit.
I can't stop thinking about
Yeah.
it. You on all fours.
Limbs everywhere. I was trying just to avoid taking people's eyes out with elbows and stuff, you know. But then after all that, after he'd seen me doing yoga, I just tried to avoid him for ages. He did pull me up on it at breakfast once.
At the same hotel?
Yeah, he pulled me up and said,
He's gone back for a second dig.
What on earth were you doing in there? And I said, I got roped in. And then his missus actually said, why can't you be more like that? Why can't you do it?
Why can't you be more crouchy?
Yeah, and I was like, yeah.
Yes, Souness.
But now you can always say, remember the oatcake, though. And that
tam
that
o'shanter.
horrible, the tam o'shanter. If he's had that lobbed at him, though, it's very hard, I imagine, when something's thrown at you, because you can't really throw it back into the crowd. You can't blame the whole crowd for one person's actions. And you've had a couple of things thrown at you,
Yeah, I
surely.
mean, there's actually a great picture of Jonathan Walters. I was playing away at Newcastle and I'd scored, I think it was last few minutes to make it 1-1. And you can't celebrate with your own fans at Newcastle because they're so
Right at
far
the
up
top,
in the
yeah.
gods. You can't. You need to sort of go by the Newcastle fans. So I was sort of celebrating near them, and a programme got launched at me. There's a great picture of actually me celebrating and John Walters just leafing through the programme behind it.
Work with what you've got. It's
Yeah,
like, there's that video of, I can't remember what band it is, but someone lobs a pint and the guy catches it and just drinks the pint. But would you ever receive gifts whilst warming up?
You know, when you're on the bench, obviously when you're playing, the last thing you're thinking about is food. But when you're on the bench, sometimes you'd like,
peckish.
those pies smell nice. I'd love it. I'd love a little pie and a bovril at half time. And shit, now I've got to play.
Also, it's not the 1940s. You can't get Bovril at the ground.
Oh, can you not? Well, obviously, you forget because I've
You've
been
not
playing
been-
for so long. The last time I probably went to a match properly as a fan, I was having a pie and a bovril.
What else has changed in the last 20 years?
So please let me know.
You can pay by contactless.
You can pay by contactless for your
What?
bad
Hold
beer.
on. What? Through a turnstile?
At the concessions, at the food concessions.
Oh, sorry. Oh, God, yeah. I've got an email here. Right. Hi, Peter and the lads. I actually abused you. Great. While you were playing for QPR versus Gillingham, which sticks out in my mind as quite an abusive match, actually. In my defence, you were young and I didn't know who you were. Karma is now a bitch. I'm 6 foot and I live in Asia and I can't buy an effing pair of socks that fit.
Oh, no. Nightmare.
Many thanks, Darren. I love this PS. He's redeemed himself with this little PS. PS, I've got a mate called Carl, and he's a prick too.
That Peter Crouch podcast from BBC 5 Live.
Here's one from Ollie. Ollie says, now I'm an Oxford United fan. In 2011, we were fortunate enough to have Michael Duberry join the team, former Chelsea Leeds central defender. And let's just say it was clear for all to see that he was carrying some of that extra experience around his waist. In making jest of this point, when the rest of the crowd would shout, Doobs, my brother and I would shout, Moves! The reason I regret this so much is I had nothing against Doobs. In fact, he was probably one of my favourite players at Oxford during his spell at the club. I'm hoping that in writing this, I can get some closure on the episode. Also, in the faint hope that Doobs is listening and can forgive me my footballing sins. All the best, Ollie.
That is quite funny, isn't it? I mean, Dubes moves. It's quite good. So I can understand. It's nothing against the actual player. Sometimes I find that the other way. If a song's very good, it gets sung a lot more. And I'm like, why do they think this player's crap? Why does he keep getting his name sung? The one song in particular involved 3 players. 2 of them don't get in the squad. And they're getting sung about. And they're not even playing.
What was the song?
Liverpool, I remember, involving Luis Sangria and Luis Garcia, sorry. I've had a few sangrias.
That's clearly your nickname for him then. That's amazing.
And that was the song. Luis Garcia drinks sangria.
Oh, was it?
But there's quite a few involving Biscan, Haman. So sometimes the song is better than the player. That's what I'm trying to get at.
Is there a case sometimes where a very cutting song, maybe like the Moobs one, can actually finish a player's career in the same way that some people would argue that Craig David's career never recovered from Bo Selector?
I think fantasy football started the Jason Lee song with the pineapple, and I think that followed him round, and it wasn't fun for him, but the song obviously was entertained a lot of people, and yeah, it's a bit of fun, fun for you, and you go home, but those people are players and their family, their kids could be at the game, and people singing those songs which seem funny, and I get it, but along with Craig David as well, with the Bo Selector stuff. You imagine how many times he's heard that? And the person saying it when they see Craig David think they're the first person to have said it.
I can tell you he doesn't like it.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure.
Really? You've spoken to Craig David about this?
Craig David does not like proper bowl.
I'm not surprised, to be honest. God, the Mel B one wasn't great either, was it?
Mel B, do you remember that one? Please do it. Crab paste. What was it?
Did she have
can't do
Kez
the
as
voice.
well? Did she have Kez, or was that Craig David? Who had Kez?
That was Craig David.
Oh, God.
This one's called Robert Greene, No Regrets.
Sounds like an album.
Crouchy, I'm a Newcastle fan living in London, and a few years ago we were playing West Ham away on a Saturday night. We messed around with our tickets and found ourselves front row right behind Robert Greene's goal. For the majority of a dull first half, we rather childishly and relentlessly shouted, Robert, 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 to which we got no response. Our enthusiasm never relented, and 5 minutes before the break, Robert broke. turned around and shouted, "What?" Obviously, and much to the delight of the Newcastle fans, we replied with, "You're a wanker, mate." I'm 38 and should know much better, but I don't. See you next time. Love the podcast. Robert. And that's from Mike. Poor Robert Green there has had an absolute mare.
He's had a mare there. The persistence there and then to say you're a wanker. That's amazing.
Yeah, like 40 minutes of Robert.
The way you've described Rob Green before, Crouchy, he sounds like a sensitive soul. He's a man who goes to the pub by himself, has a cup of tea, and then sits by the fire reading a book, which is not normal behaviour for a footballer.
He's a thinker, which is not normal for a footballer. Yeah, he is. And I think, he might have taken that to heart a little bit. And hopefully he didn't. No need for that, is there?
There is quite a few emails from people that have had a go at you, Crouchy.
Yeah. I don't actually mind a bit of something that no one's ever said before that's quite funny. It's quite, you don't mind that. Take it in good jest. It's when it's the mindless stuff where people just shout obscenities.
What is the most common obscenity that has been shouted at you?
Usually involves being tall, like your lanky tosser or something. Or your missus is fit. Well, yeah, I think that's more of a compliment.
Yeah. You have a beautiful wife.
Wonderful personality as well.
The reason I ask what the most common insult is that you receive is, I believe that, so there was a time in your career where people would commonly shout freak at you, which can't have been nice.
No, it was I always remember the Gillingham game. It was when I first started, because people know me now, know that I'm taller. When I first started, I was very different to the average footballer, body shape wise. People were like, what's this, basically. So when I first started, I got, absolutely abused. Freak, does the circus know you're here? This and that. And although, it's funny, I suppose.
I don't know if it is. I don't think it's very original.
And also, people forget, Chris, don't they? And look, you and me have probably been guilty of this as well, shouting stuff at footballers. You forget that footballers are actually people.
Yeah.
But they're a young lad and they're going to take it on board. They go home and it's horrible.
Well, that's it. I mean, I've got thick skin now, and I think you couldn't play football for as long as I have if you didn't. But when I was a kid, I was 18, and all of a sudden I've gone from playing youth team games to playing in front of, say, 25, 30,000 people, all shouting this abuse at you. And my mum and dad are in the crowd. You know what I mean? My mum's in tears. My dad's having fights. And it's like, it was tough. And it was a couple of times where I was like, do I want to put myself through this every week? When you're a young lad, teenager, you're self-conscious probably a bit more, bit more than I am now. Don't care as much now, but obviously then it's tough really to take. And make a joke of it and stuff, but my mum was crying and we had to console her after. My dad wants to fight everyone because it's his son. I'm on the pitch, I can't react, but I've got to try and, do as well as I can for the team, trying to make a name for myself in football. So it's a fine line between a bit of fun, I suppose, and how far do you take it. And for me, it was just it was a tough start. But I got over that, and I feel really proud of myself to sort of come through it. And sometimes it crosses the line a bit. And I think in my early days, it did cross the line a bit. I get off the coach and you just hear, fully grown men, like 40-year-old fellas, like shouting, spitting in your face. It was tough.
I think what's interesting about this episode is that actually, out of all the emails we got more emails from people wanting to apologise for shouting the word freak at you than anything else. This one's from Graeme. He says, I have a guilty secret. I was one of those that heckled Crouchy in his early days. Every time he touched the ball, we all yelled, freak. Sorry, Peter, I went with the crowd and realised that I have to confess. And that's from Graeme now.
That's nice. Well, here's one from
Very
Ollie.
nice.
I remember watching Peter Crouch play for QPR against Luton at Kenilworth Road in the FA Cup. He had an absolutely awful haircut. But listen, Ollie would like to apologise as well, Crouchy.
Yeah, he's spot on about the haircut. Was bad.
Here you go, Crouchy. This is a really nice one from James. Why don't you read this one out?
James, okay. Hi, Peter. I shouted freak and sung Does the Circus Know You're Here at you? Great. Although this was highly music at the time, I'm still chuckling even now as I write this. I do realise that as a Stoke City fan, this is wrong, not big or clever. I therefore humbly apologise. Best wishes, James. Thanks, James.
I think that's actually a real sign of people looking back and perhaps going, actually, that was a bit of a shit insult to throw. And probably people did it without really giving it much thought because everyone else was doing it. So it's really interesting hearing what you're saying right now about actually how it was from your side of things.
But I was getting it quite a bit, and I was getting it on the street and various places, and it was a little bit much. And it takes me to, I think, certainly one of my first England games was another probably where it's actually been serious. It sort of affected me personally. It was one of my first England games, and I got booed as I was coming on. And it was at Old Trafford, and I was playing for Liverpool at the time. But I was like, it's one of my first, I've only played England 5 times today. And I came on and got one here from David in Worcestershire. He's obviously talking along these lines. He said, I have a confession, it's been eating away at me for years. It was at Old Trafford, England v Poland. So this is
the actual game.
This is it, yeah. And he
about?
had an email in about
wow.
it, believe it or not. Yeah, and he said, somehow my friends and I were sitting pretty much next to Sven and the England bench. While everyone was watching the game, we noticed Sven getting ready to make his notorious game-killing substitutions. So he started shouting, no, and boo. Unfortunately, the crowd around us caught on just as Peter was warming up, and suddenly everyone was booing Crouchy. I always felt guilty for starting the booing, which was never intended to be aimed at Peter. And then it says something nice after. But the way I took it was, when I was coming on, I think I was coming on for Sean Wright-Phillips, which was a strange scenario.
Sven's basically gone, right, that's not worked.
That's not a like for like, is it?
Let's do the opposite. Yeah, just slot into Sean's role.
Yeah, that was a strange one. But anyway, I came on and there was like boo, the whole stadium was booing. I was like, what's going on? I obviously don't know, do you?
That's been on your mind,
I'm just
clearly.
coming, yeah, but I felt that I could have been ridiculed if I'd have come in and not, because a lot of people thought I wasn't good enough to play for England at the start. And that's how I took that booing initially.
It must be horrible, though, because as a kid who loves football, as a kid who spent his childhood obsessed with the game and out in the park every night, the absolute peak of that dream is playing for England. And if you make your home debut and you hear people booing you, I mean, that's horrible. It's like being booed at your wedding or something.
That was how I found it. I've worked all my life to get to this point. Such a proud moment for me, coming on for England, and you hear that. And you think, obviously, like I've brought everyone there, family, friends, sister, like everyone. And obviously got that kind of reception. But I have to say from then on, I mean, that was a minor thing. And obviously Dave from Worcester there has hopefully said that was it wasn't me, it was the substitution. But yeah, I went on and had some of the best times. And my relationship with England fans and having played for England has always been fantastic since that. So it's not all doom and gloom.
Bear with me on this email. It's from Ethan. I think this is an amazing email that we got. I'm a Spurs fan who lives in Birmingham, his dad's influence. One of my first ever games was Villa v Spurs, and Crouch came on as a sub and got absolutely abused. He was a lanky, spotty teenager who hadn't really proved himself. Brackets, I'm allowed to say it because I'm lanky too, but it scared me as a young boy. Little did I know he would be my favourite person ever. The goals against AC Milan and Man City will make him a Spurs legend. There were congas around the house because of this beautiful man. I have never and will never abuse Peter Crouch. He's a legend. That's from Ethan.
I feel a bit
Isn't that
teary
nice?
having read that.
Yeah, that is nice. Very nice.
You've really had to win people over, haven't you?
That's it. And I felt that because I look different, people saw me as a joke if they didn't know that I could play. And throughout my career, be it county trials or playing for the district, when I was a kid, I had to prove myself in every single game because people straight away would go, have a look at him, he's whatever size. And I knew I was good at it. So even when I was a professional footballer, I still had to prove myself in every game.
Weirdly, boys, I think this has been quite an empowering episode. I'm enjoying this in a very different way to some of the other ones.
It's been cathartic, hasn't it? It's made me feel guilty about some things I've done at football. And I'd like to say, this is a bit pretentious, but I'd like to think there'd be like a roadmap going forward of how, as fans, we should behave at football matches. Equally, it is really nice going,
Listen, I am not adverse to an That is absolutely fine by me. And listen, if you didn't have that atmosphere at football matches, us v them, what would football be? We need that.
Right, let's think about our next episode. I've got a little idea, chaps. What about a special on goalkeepers?
Oh, okay. I suppose they're your main rival, Crouchy, aren't they, really?
Yeah, I totally agree because they're so different to everyone else. They train on their own, miles away from anyone. They do different things. They're skilled at different part of the anatomy. They're very different. And also I've found different mentally from footballers. Very strange.
Oh, it's interesting if their personalities are different as well, because they are footballers, I'm aware of that.
They're footballers, but they use their hands. They're not footballers, are they? In the truest sense at all.
Yeah.
No, they're goalkeepers. And that's why it'd be interested to chat about them, because they are very, very different people.
Anyway, lots to discuss, clearly.
Goalies it is.
We go again.
Back stronger.
That Peter Crouch podcast from BBC 5 Live.
Thank you so much for your confessions. We got hundreds of them, maybe even thousands. So the big plan is, if we get a second series of this podcast, we're going to do another whole episode on them. It'll be great. We can call it Confessions Part 2, like Usher. People will love it. In the meantime, I've got a little bit of admin that would really, really help us three out. If you can keep making sure you leave your reviews, can you please pass on the pod to anyone that will listen? And also, do it now. Download the BBC Sounds app. Every episode's on there. And that last bit will keep management happy.
BBC Radio 5 Live.